say the most effective tactic we have had in the United States for making Nazis uncomfortable in the streets is punching them in the face. It's a tried and true tactic, folks. And I've got to say, I have to speak on one thing, which has been only quoted in one news article about yesterday's action, which had to do with tomatoes. And I would just like to say, if there was 100 people with us, nobody would have known where that tomato had come from. The bag would have dropped to the ground and everything would have been fine. That's all I have to say on that. The more people we have, the more diversity we can have, the more we can keep everybody else safe.
I think Angus said to me the other day, I thought it was a really good point, that you can punch a Nazi, but you can't punch Nazism. You can fight or you can shoot a fascist, but you can't shoot fascism.
I appreciate everybody who said Asher. Thank you. That provides amazing context for the organizing we're doing about some of these protesters. As many of you know, like Richard Ward and Nick, whatever his name is. Blanchard, thank you.
The bogus free speech rally on the Boston Common. But there was a very, very broad coalition of many different organizations. And there was a red contingent, which consisted of the International Socialist Organization, which I was a member of at the time, the DSA, Socialist Alternative, and a number of other leftist groups that all kind of came together to form a red bloc. And then there were also just lots of people who were there, sort of unorganized individuals. And I think that is a good example of how mass politics works. And I mean to say that in that it does work, it is effective. At the counter protest to that, there was a very strong emphasis on like being armed or using fireworks or encouraging conflicts with police. So what ended up happening is while those initial protests were successful, many of the unorganized layers who turned out to protest for those didn't feel safe.
The Labor Council, the leaders are all really good progressive liberals who would be excited, and some radicals who'd be excited to help. But I think, especially as someone who's in maybe the most reactionary of the construction and building trades unions, I would be a little bit scared, to be totally honest, to go up in front of my brothers and sisters, my union siblings, and say, hey, like, this is really important. This is a fight we need to have. But I'm willing to make those asks when we're ready to do it. So making those connections and fostering those connections, and I think providing the particular analysis, at least for me, the analysis that we can provide as socialists and the democratic socialists is that these struggles are all intertwined. It's they might feel separate, but we're fighting one big fight, and that union workers of any color will never be safe unless we're all safe. So yeah, that's I think that's what I have to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, comrade. Optics become a question, and how we relate to the media in mobilizations, either before, in press releases, during, or during, in statements or literature, and interactions that way. But specifically, we blocked out the "It's Okay to Be White" banner for, I'd say, 90% of its appearance. It was blocked out by signs including "Stupid Racist" sign and "It's Not Okay to Be Alt-Right." And I'm very proud of all my comrades who came out that day. And that's an example of a pretty successful mobilization. We didn't scare them away. They'll be back in 2 weeks, according to one guy. And that's also something to mobilize for in the future and discuss what went right, what went wrong, what to do differently, either in private spaces or more publicly, depending on the nature of the conversation. Will, go ahead.
Thanks, comrade. Will T, he, him. I live in Cumberland Center, and I was, of course, appalled by the fascist demonstrations that have occurred, but almost more so by the media coverage. I thought that the Bangor Daily News, especially, that's really the only article. I don't have a Press Herald subscription. I'm sure they probably weren't much better, if better at all. But the Bangor Daily News article about it did. I would say they sort of bent over backwards trying to both sides the issue. The cover photo really was pretty incredible. I think that they really were very much trying to frame this as a, like, look at all of these angry people. And then on top of that, they ended the article with a series of quotes about how Richard Ward is not that bad of a person, but he sure is wrong on this one issue, which was just like obscene, like incredible to me to read first thing in the morning, waking up and scrolling through the Bangor Daily News email I get.
Hey everybody, my name's Jake, pronouns are he, him. I'm over here in South Portland. Grateful for this space y'all are making. I just had a question, and maybe it's just a longer term question too, but I'd be curious from some of the speakers just to hear about, like, thinking about like the tension or like trying to find that middle ground of like making people like Richard Ward not feel comfortable or welcome in Portland.
I can speak to that.
Valid. So valid. That is an interesting struggle. I think that's one of the breakout rooms, is one of the things that we want to talk about, is like action that we can take, hopefully to be proactive in stopping it. For him, it's not fun for him to be out there, because right now he's getting attention, and it could be anything from just basically stopping him from being interviewed, like being super annoying while they're trying to interview him, just make it useless. It could mean, that's one of the things we want to talk about. And I want to hear people's, what their thoughts are, because I think there's a lot of good options. And I think there's also a lot of, I think there's a lot of really interesting ideas that could really be really useful.
And there are a lot of fascists active in the rural parts of New England. And there are a lot of fascists active in the rural parts of New England.
Being new to the area and not really knowing a lot about all these different organizations, knowing a little bit about the organization that you represent, I think the word socialist can sometimes turn people off. My husband and I are social democrats. We're not a part of the group that you are, but we have the same belief systems. There may be differences in how we carry out our acts and choices of, how we show up. But so at any rate, that word kind of turns some people off. We've been activists for a long time, 40 plus years now. And so I know how that word tends to, for people like us who are in our 60s, tends to turn people off. That being said, I want to know how we can come together. But I just wanted to put that in there. The other thing is that I was interviewed by Channel 13, CBS, out of Portland. I talked with the reporter for probably, 15 minutes. And interestingly enough, they edited the very last thing that I said, which was probably watered down more than the beginning of what I had originally talked about. Didn't surprise me. I've been interviewed by Sinclair stations in Michigan, where we came from. So the interesting thing with that was once the camera was turned off, I got to talk to the reporter. Very wonderful guy, obviously was talking to me off camera about how there is a lot of racism in Maine, and is a gay gentleman and has obviously felt that. He's a person of color, has obviously felt that. And again, I think trying to have certain press on our side, or at least having dialogue with them so that we can understand where they are coming from. It doesn't always help in the aspect of how things are edited, but to have kind of a commonality of some sort with certain press, because obviously people are talking about Bangor and they're not being, doing things in the correct way.
But people do need to be able to work with people who are socialists, who are anarchists, who are communists, who are liberals, in order to be able to actually make a front against fascism in our community. But I don't think we can pretend that there are not socialist principles that are defining most of our participants' actions.
Yeah. Thank you, Rowan. I wanted to say a lot. Rowan said DSA hosts this call, but doesn't own or control the organizing or mobilizing we'll be doing by any means. If you'd like to help moderate the Discord, that'd be wonderful. Currently, it's called Anti-Racist Action, which that's a response to another point you made, Talia. And our event's called the Anti-Racist Town Hall. I think in the future, this could be expanded to Mainers Against Hate.
To folks who are not comfortable with the idea of what socialists are and what all this is doing. I think folks have made good points already, but really what we do in that situation isn't get them comfortable with socialism first and then organize. We organize and win first, and then they become comfortable with socialism because we won. And that has been the case historically, and will continue to be so. All of the rhetoric around these misunderstandings of socialism and organizing as a whole didn't come out of nowhere with that. But when we organize effectively, when we win small demands and can build that into larger campaigns, they will be with us. This is very much another example of, and this work in general is an example of the power of the transitional program and how we can apply that in these circumstances, because we can find small demands and small actions and small circumstances that are immediately going to be helpful, that are immediately going to matter to the folks who are around us. And then when we win in those small circumstances, we snowball that and continue to organize against larger and larger circumstances, and we get more people with us through that rather than the other way around.
Thank you, Emery.